Okay, welcome everyone to what is going to be a bit of a different video in that there will still be a little bit of coding, but this is mainly going to be a PSA of sorts. So a little while back I came across an article that talked about how the author found passwords and other personal information and company information on public Trello boards. And I found it very interesting because at first I was like, no, there's no way that's actually true. But then I started thinking about it more and kind of how this all worked, and it made a little more sense. And I want to preface this by saying, please don't do this. Please never post your password in plain text anywhere that's public. Don't do it. People will find it, and it'll be a bad day for you. So the article I read about talked about Trello and how people were posting their passwords and other stuff publicly on public Trello boards. And so I wanted to look into how hard it would be to actually find that stuff on Trello, because it's public, but Trello doesn't actually have a search functionality built into Trello. When you get to this page here for Trello, it's just a login portal, and even when you log in, there isn't a search for a board functionality. You have to be invited or given a link. And that second part, the link, is what's important, because it acts sort of like YouTube Unlisted. For a public Trello board, all you need is just the link to the board. And here I have one pulled up. This is Equilinox. This is by another YouTuber called The Matrix. This was a game he made, and he had this Trello board here to kind of show his progress off. And this is an example of a good way or a good reason to have a public Trello board. There is general information for the community that he wanted them to see. There is nothing personal on this. It's just all public information. And so I was looking at this, it got me thinking a bit, because if you notice here at the top I've highlighted, this is how all Trello boards start. This is the base URL. It is trello.com/b and then a board identification number, and then followed by the board name. But the board name is actually irrelevant, because if I copy out the board name and just go to that, it'll redirect me anyways. So the name of the board is irrelevant. All we need is just the board ID. And that brings up a very possible attack, in that you can just brute force this. And while that is a very good theoretical first attack, it is very impractical, because assuming that this sticks to just alphanumeric characters, we have 62 possible characters per slot in the ID, 8 slots, that's 62 to the 8th power, which is just over 218 trillion IDs. And let's say, for the sake of ease, let's make our math be you can visit one page every second, and you're looking at a time just shy of 7 trillion years, and you quickly see why this is impractical. So we have an attack method we can do to get each Trello board and find the public ones, to then kind of just sift through the public, or sift through the Trello boards. But we need a better system. And what we can do instead is actually leverage Google itself. Because if you go to Google, they have a advanced search functionality where you can limit your searches to a certain URL or domain. And that's what I've done here, and I searched it, and you can see we are only getting results that have this as the base URL. So we're actually just searching on Trello kind of itself. And this is where the way you can find information is because I can literally just type in Equilinox here, add a plus, and now I have searched Trello for Equilinox. I misspelled Equilinox, but either way, it still catches it, and I have found the Equilinox public Trello board without having the URL itself. And I can now further utilize this in code. This is where we're actually getting to the code bits. I made this very simple scrape of Google to basically just do exactly that, but do it in a script that will do it much quicker than I can manually, and actually output all the stuff to a nice list. Now I can run this. It's going to be very slow, because Google doesn't take kindly to web scraping their Google results, and while they will eventually kind of block you from Google searching without doing a verification process. So I'm not a kind of expert in scraping like this. I'm very mediocre at this. I wrote this very quickly in like 10 minutes. But the point of this was to show you that even someone like me without any knowledge of web scraping like this can do this really quickly. Again, this took me like 10-15 minutes to write this out. So if I stop this here, here's the output it was grabbing. So in the, I don't know, say 20 seconds that I was running, I got 76 Trello boards by just Google searching. And this is a very rudimentary way. I'm literally just going through every character in the search engine. Again, very basic. If someone knows more than me, they could probably do this much more efficiently. But this is one I got from a while ago before I tested this. This is 595 Trello boards that I had grabbed. And you can see just going through this, just the name of the Trello board and the URL. Like, it's, again, not hard for me to find this. I do want to preface all this and say that there are real reasons to have a public Trello board. Quillinox here is a great example of why you'd want a public Trello board. Artists and other designers who use like their boards for commissions and stuff, again, a very realistic ways for having a public Trello board. But it's the ability to search Trello boards because they are crawlable by Google. The ability for me to search for all boards and find keywords that are contained in a board, and you can see the implications of why you don't want to store your passwords on the Trello board. Now, before I keep going, I'm going to say you can do this, but please don't do this for any malicious intent. Please just don't do this. I went through and actually tried and actively find some passwords and other information on Trello boards, and I will say I actually did find stuff. Granted, most of the boards were old, they're from like 2015, so I would assume that none of those passwords were still valid and working, because I'm sure many people like me have done this. So I would assume that they'd either been already hacked or somehow informed, and hopefully not have been hacked. But I did do this, and I actually did find one board that was fairly recent that I was actually very concerned about because it was their email and password both on the board. So I actually ended up emailing that person, kind of telling them, hey, you might want to lock down your Trello board. But either way, again, please don't do this for any malicious intent. Try be the good guy and try to help people out. Again, not everyone is technologically savvy like this and will understand the ramifications of putting their password and stuff on what they don't seem as a very public source, but is actually still very public. But again, public means public. If it is public, people can find it. People will find it. Don't post your passwords to this kind of stuff. And yeah, hopefully this helps as a nice PSA. Again, different video, but I thought you guys would find it interesting and helpful and all that stuff. The code I showed will be on my GitHub repo. Feel free to kind of do what you want. I mean, I'm not too worried about me posting that kind of code and enabling people, because again, it's not hard to do. So I don't feel like I'm really giving the tools for people to go out and do this. I'm sure they could find their way to do it. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.